it's Doris, and these are the books that I chose for Bout of Books, and I'm going to tell you how I did. I did pretty well. Per usual, I didn't quite finish, but I'm still quite pleased with my progress. I'm going to go over these in the order in which I finished them. So first up is Out of Darkness by Ashley Hope Perez, and this was a Prince Honor book, which is young adult fiction award in the States. And I hate this book. I despise this book. I hardly ever say this about a book, but just know. There's just too much bad stuff happening to one group of people, one family. And I usually don't do this either, but I'm just gonna go ahead and tell you all of the things, because I hate it when you're watching somebody review a book and they just say too much and you feel like maybe they spoiled the book for you. And I'm just gonna go ahead and spoil this one. There's child molestation, there's stroke, there's death of the mother in childbirth, the father drowned, there's rape, there's fake lynching, there's racism on top of racism, there's a sort of natural disaster caused by humans, and on it goes. It's just completely ridiculous in my opinion, and I hated it. I totally hated it. The only thing that I got out of it was there was a very interesting dynamic that it showed with racism between the Mexican population and the black population and the white population in Texas, the oil boom in, I think, around 1936, it said. And it is historical fiction, so there's an interesting historical aspect. But overall, and it's not like, I don't read happy books. I read sad, depressing books all the time, and I think they have great literary merit. But this one was just too much. Like, you know, when you read The Kite Runner, I mean, there are some horrific scenes in that book that are really hard to read. But in the end, you get this beautiful story of redemption, and it's just so worth it. But no, there's just not enough hope left in the end of this book to justify the laundry list of horribleness that happens. I just wasn't happy that I read it. And that was one that I made myself read because I had all these other books I wanted to read, but I had started that one and I thought it was going to be worthwhile, and I'm just not happy. Anyway, moving on. Fantastic Beasts. I absolutely adored this movie. I just loved it. And I honestly enjoyed reading the screenplay. The first few pages felt a little boring, but then it just, and actually the movie was a little slow in the beginning, to be quite honest, but then it was just like you could see the movie playing in your mind as you read it, and it was just like rewatching it, but you know, in your imagination. And I just absolutely adored it. Plus the book is gorgeous. Now I don't know if you'd get the same thing out of it if you had not seen the movie. Oh, look at how cute the inside was too. I hadn't noticed that before. They're like metallic dots. So yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. And the other thing that I liked was the artwork in the book. They said it was like a little bit Art Deco style, and yeah, I just thought that this was pretty top notch. Here's another one. Quick read and a fun read. And then next up, I finished Alexander Pushkin, The Captain's Daughter. This was another quick read, and actually I mentioned earlier, but I had these first four, I had already started all of them, and that's why I wanted to just get them finished, tie up loose ends. And this is the one that I was reading it with my student from Uzbekistan, and he left, and then I just didn't finish it, and I just wanted to go ahead and do that. And I kind of thought it was boring and uninteresting for a while, but then it really got quite interesting and enjoyable. And this is also historical fiction it's Russian, from the early late 1700s, I forget. I'm so sorry. I'm not up on 1773. It's the Pugachev's rebellion in Russia from 1773 to 1776, and I believe that it was written around 1836. Yeah. So yeah, I just kind of enjoyed the twists at the end, and yeah, it was kind of fun. So that was good. This one I adored. And this is not for everyone. It doesn't have, this is a, not exact, it's not a retelling, it's sort of a retelling of Alice in Wonderland, but it's kind of a different spin on it. It's introduced some new characters, and it's kind of the people that are left behind looking for Alice. And Gregory Maguire is just so skilled with words. I mean, he epitomizes the word wordsmith. I just love the way he plays with words. It fascinates me and it amuses me, and sometimes he says, he strings words together so profoundly. And yeah, and then there's some fun character developments in here too. I really thought they were neat. The plot is, I mean, it's just as weird as Alice in Wonderland. So again, this is not for everybody. Some people would think it was just weird and odd and crazy, but I loved it. Like, I'm just gonna read a few lines that cracked me up, like, from the get-go. And this is the governess and her employer, who I believe is a minister. So Miss Armstrong is the governess, obviously, and then the vicar. Miss Armstrong sometimes tried to communicate her yearning for recognition as a feminine entity by the tilting of an eyebrow. This was too obscure a hieroglyphic for the vicar to decipher. No matter how Miss Armstrong concentrated the pure fire of her being in the muscles of her forehead, one day she would self-immolate like Crook in Bleak House, spontaneous combustion caused by an eyebrow left to smolder a moment too long. I don't know. You can see how many spots that I just marked because I wanted to remember them and write them down, because it amused me greatly. This is an ARC, and it is released this month. I don't know if it's out yet or coming soon, but it's a January release. And this is a young adult not a comedy, it's a young adult romance. And the premise is a blind boy who has gone to school for the blind, boarding school, all of his school career, and now he's going to high school because he wants to get used to living out in the wider world, because he wants to be a journalist, and he realizes that he's going to have to learn to cope in that environment. So he convinces his parents, his mom especially, that he can handle public high school. And then while there, he becomes friends with the academic team, and one of the girls he becomes friends with on the journaling staff, he develops an interest in her, and there's something visually different about her, and nobody tells him. And yeah, one thing I liked about this was the author was very cognizant of how the blind student would interact with the world more by sound and touch, those senses, and he did a good job of writing that in the story. And I mean, it's just a teenage love story, but I enjoyed it. It was another quick read, and fun to get through. And then I finished the Rosie Effect. If you watched my previous videos, I gushed over the Rosie project. I loved it so much. And this one wasn't, maybe not quite as good. You can see there's a stork, so there, yeah. But it was still really good. There wasn't quite as many of the hilarious scenes from the first book, and there was a little more tension throughout the novel with all the problems that the poor guy got into. But I still enjoyed it a great deal. And one part I really enjoyed was there was a group of guys, about 4 of them, and I just really enjoyed the interaction between them that developed through the novel. I thought that was really a neat perspective, because in a lot of romances you get the girlfriends chatting, and it was kind of a neat perspective to get the guy group thoughts going on. And there's a really sweet scene in towards the end with the movie It's a Wonderful Life played into it. I thought that was neat too. So overall, yes, I loved it. It was a great series, the 2 books. And then, per usual, I did not finish the last book of my challenge. These were self-chosen challenges. Like I said, 4 of them I was halfway through, and then in 2 of them I read the whole thing, and then this one I barely got started. But yay, at least I got started, right? So I'm happy to have all those loose ends tied up, and it was a pretty good stack of reads, except for the one that I'm so violently opposed to. Well, not violently, but I was very angry about it. I didn't like it at all. But thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon with my next stack of reads. Bye!